How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lone Wolf, and today I'm going to go and do a mission. It's just a mission again, not a contract, called Restoring Communication. Pretty simple. I believe it's actually, you can get an angle where I can actually read it. That tower kind of in the background, just slightly to the left, that's on the mountain, I believe that's basically where I'm going to end up going. And yeah, like I said, mission. There's not really anything major to it. To be honest, it was I've got to grab a cargo container from there. It was more just I've been on this track, but I didn't really head down here because I took the loaf kind of along to there and then went up the trees to that watchtower. So yeah, I've not really checked this place out, and again you can see it kind of in the background and that. There's the road kind of heading down that way. I could, because I've unlocked this garage that has cargo containers, I could go this way and up that road, but I've already been kind of this way a lot in videos, and I sort of wanted to check out that way. In theory, I was thinking afterwards I could kind of might drive out the other way, but then I saw that there was a gigantic jump off there, and I was thinking that's probably how things might end. And yeah, for this one, I got the old Kenworth 963 back out. I just keep kind of scrolling past it in my garage. I bought a couple of them just so I don't have to keep going back. I need to go back to Russia again though, just to go and buy some more loaves and stuff. Yeah, I kind of wanted to take this truck out, to be honest. I do quite like it, even though it's as sort of shows in this video at various times, it's certainly not the fastest, but yeah, I wanted an excuse to take it out. I only need one cargo container, which is 2-slot cargo, and I rarely use this. I've got like the flatbed basically instead of the sideboard. I like the look of these and everything. It basically came down to, as I was putting loaves like in the sideboard, going back before you were able to pack vehicles and that, I used to put the loaf in the sideboard and then just winch it kind of up tight to the front of the sideboard. But yeah, having the sideboard helped, and then as well, even with cargo, if you tipped to where you didn't quite roll over but the cargo unpacked, obviously on this, if you say sitting diagonal like 45-50 degrees leaning over, the cargo is going to unpack and probably slide off. You just got a little extra chance sometimes in the right situation, sort of thing, but it did add up here and there. Yeah, that the cargo, like, it'd unpack, but then it'd just lean against the sideboard. You'd kind of tip back to your wheels and then just click repack cargo instead of having to get the crane out, or worst case, you haven't even got a crane and then you've got to send one. And yeah, going through here, I mean, I knew this thing wasn't going to be rapid along here anyway, and it could just be me, but I do feel like maybe I'm just paranoid about it, but I'm pretty certain I've done it before. Is kind of a stealth update a week or two after the phase releases, and I just always feel like everything gets a little bit slower, and I could be wrong on it. It's just a gut feeling. It's just between, like, I remember sometimes when I'm, say, not doing many videos but I was doing the live stream each week, I kind of got used to, say, mod levels of vehicles, and then when I did a video it was sort of like, oh yeah, this back to vanilla trucks and that. But yeah, recently I've still been doing videos like every day, so I don't feel like I'm sort of, I don't know, one live stream later I'm not used to the, say, vanilla in-game trucks anymore. And yeah, the Zik 605R felt a little bit, I've got a feeling it might be the gearboxes. Yeah, the Steve with the boat was fine, but there was just little bits where, again, it wasn't really struggling. It just felt like, it's almost like that clutch slipping thing I've mentioned before, which I know isn't necessarily literally happening, but it just sort of plays across like that, or yeah, like something, like the engine's not getting enough air, and again, I know that wouldn't be the case unless they've kind of made it to be that way. And that's it really. And then driving this, I know I've definitely driven the Kenworth along here kind of when the game first came out, and again, I mean, it's not going to set any lap records down here, but I'm pretty sure it just feels like it's bogging down a little bit slower and everything, which sometimes obviously struggle to maintain your speed. Like once I got here, I remember flying past that flag, you get some pretty good top speed going along here. But anyway, I still a good mission, still glad I took this truck. Yeah, like I say, it was a good chance to just not really test it as such, but the flatbed, I don't often bring that out, and I kind of had a plan in mind. I've obviously got the goddamn horse with me. I knew that in theory it wouldn't quite fit once I put like the cargo container on, and if I had a sideboard, I'm kind of obviously confined to within that square. So yeah, I was hoping to I was curious, because I don't use these much, to hang the loaf kind of over the back and just see like how much room do I need. Yeah, again, normally I'd kind of butt up to the sideboard, but I was curious to see if his back end could just hang over and then get the cargo container on. And then yeah, I've got the crane as well. Strictly speaking, you don't need it because you can auto pack the cargo, but if I did tip or anything, yeah, it, like this one, I've sort of demonstrated it in videos before. It's not, you're not going to want to do it. You'd rather have a crane potentially, but the loaf can push cargo back onto trucks. But I would say this one would be an awkward one just for the fact it's like a very tall chassis. So for example, if I wanted to push the cargo container onto it, it'd probably end up being more than half the height of the cargo container, so it'd probably just shove the cargo container into the truck. Whereas if it's sort of low enough, you can kind of, especially if you stick a winch to the other side, the loaf will kind of rotate it over the top, and then yeah, disconnect the winch halfway through. And if it goes well, the cargo stays on the truck. There, by the way, a truck was pulling up outside. I don't know what, I think they just got the wrong turn in. There was just a full-size truck started pulling up, yeah, outside my house at like 6 in the morning, so I did look away for a second, and then yeah, I was kind of eyeballing, being a nosy bastard, watching them, and yeah, my truck kind of almost left the bridge. Thankfully swerved in time. I think I tried firing a panic winch out, but then I think the tyre hit the edge of the bridge or something anyway, so we escaped. It was a close one. I probably would have driven with that level of care regardless, but yeah. I mean, that's, for the most part anyway, was kind of, I knew that was probably going to be the slower part of this video. Well, I say that, I mean, I will say this video is, it's nearly half an hour long. The mission's probably done in like 20 odd minutes. I was just a bit of messing around at the end. I thought I'd leave it in the video because why not? You never know. Might be of some scientific significance to somebody. Yeah, so got here. This is where I wanted to test. So back the loaf off, nice and gently. Nailed it. Yeah, fits pretty nicely. That's what she said. And then yeah, editing, because like I say, otherwise the video would be going on a bit longer. Yeah, well, I was able to pull in with the winch. The back tyres, you can either have them hanging down where they kind of hook underneath, or I think it was if you, I can't remember which way round it was. Like when I was winching them in, if I put his engine on or off, one of them would like hook under, one of them would bump up, and then I can just like pull him tight against the back of the container. But once his wheels were hooked underneath as well, that kind of worked out quite nicely because it kind of planted there pretty well. But yeah, regardless, we got the cargo container. Now I've got to go and try and get to that bridge. The turning circle on this is not great, but kind of probably as you'd expect with this sort of truck. For whatever reason, I was just really slow and not very good at turning in time tonight. For what it was, a few times I just kept doing it. There was once with the saving cogs hit at the perfect moment and wouldn't let me. I did feed the steering in, but it didn't register. Other than that, though, yeah, I just, every time I kept turning, I was like, well, I knew before it had even kicked in that I turned a bit too late. And then I've just got to drive ahead now. I'm not entirely sure why I started swerving off here. Maybe it was because of a service hub thing. One thing I did, oh, it had to glitch right there. I put a different bumper on, which I quite like the look of the bumper on this. And it turned out it was just about low enough, all the rest of it was like the sump guard or whatever. I drove here the other day and kind of drove up that car. But having this slightly lower bumper and all the rest of it, just pushed the car forwards. That was, I think, was kind of like subconsciously what I was thinking in my head, and I just autopilot started driving there. There is also the service hub, but yeah, it was about now I realised. Kenworth trying to put a bid on an auction. Yeah, that sign locked in the way, but then at least it kind of phased through instead of just completely locking me in place at that point. And yeah, I could have just drove straight on really and just not bothered with the service hub, even if it did fix something a tiny bit. It looks like I've already taken a tad of engine damage, but yeah, the Kenworth wasn't exactly beaten to begin with. And now I could have drove past. I certainly believe with the fuel I got left and the loaf, and I put the roof rack on this Kenworth as well, I'd certainly make it to where I'm going. But as I looked, I believe it was, to be precise, like 205 litres I'd used. Call it 200, say, because I just messed around a bit in that service hub. But then I ended up messing around a bit later on. So yeah, overall the fuel was probably for the best. Plus, in general, it was one that quite often I will just drive past a fuel station or whatever, or at least not plan one into my route because I've got a goddamn horse for me, and that is kind of my fuel planning among other things. But yeah, I mean, I was driving right past it and I just took a note, like, right, I've basically gained another 205 litres. See there, I turned late again as well. I was looking, I was like 90% sure I was going to have to turn there. I should have just, if I looked kind of further in the horizon, I would have seen the gigantic, massive unmissable mountain that would give me a pretty good clue I am turning there. But yeah, I again, turned too late. I think I had to do a 3-pointer. Got to about here for no particular reason, but I just felt like I wanted to get the loaf back on, and so I did. He's goddamn professional. He knows what he's doing. Yeah, with a crane a bit, just kind of scooted him around. You can pack him on like sideways like this, which again is another thing. I've known this before because there's other trailers and the step deck and all sorts, but just the fact that if I had a sideboard, like his wheels, one set of wheels would be propped up a little bit, so you kind of comfortably in the sideboard, but it's not packed, whereas now obviously in theory he's like, well, you'll see, it ends up being like he's on there good. So this was one of the reasons I wanted to bring the Kenworth, because I was kind of curious how it'd go up this hill. I could have gone the other way around, maybe like up the middle of the map, like, you know, the hill. But I know this was like the main juicy kind of over the top hill in the game, and I really like it. This is one of my favourite kind of needless things I've added, really. It was just pretty cool to give us like a ridiculously steep hill. Mainly more fun going down it, but yeah, for vehicle testing purposes, I mean, clearly it's very close to the edge at the minute. I've gone down into low. I still think that there's not quite enough power in low. This is probably a good example because it just eventually runs out of juice. I go down to unpack the loaf because I was going to jump him off, and it's not offering me the option to unpack the loaf. And I've never, like, I don't use the flatbed very often, but yeah, I was like, what? So the game's just going to try and keep him. So then I thought, right, I'll try and gently roll back down the hill a little bit, because then you get the truck level, it should offer me the option. Still not at the minute. I kind of didn't expect it to. Yeah, by gently roll backwards I meant scare the shit out of the loaf. And then yeah, you kind of could see there when I braked, it almost like offered the option, then disappeared and came back. So I think as I was kind of bouncing around on my own suspension, I was pretty much on the point where, like, that's how level you've got to be. Yeah, it is what it is. So jump the loaf off, build his revs up. And I'll do some editing here because I wasn't really, it wasn't very kind of like fluent video friendly. I was just kind of messing around, and yeah, it was a little bit choppy here and there. Long story short, I was just testing like the loaf at the front. I was pulling it, and you know, just like when you zombie winch and stuff, and if the vehicle is in front of you, sometimes it just starts steering off to the left or right. The loaf started going off to the right, but I already had like a bit of momentum then, so I was just curious at this point. I also wanted to drive up that grass at the left, because I was curious to see if it'd drive up the grass but say not the hill, But then I also was like, well, I should check really if, like, with this momentum and whatnot, it can get up the hill. And then it kept going up the hill. Then I stopped though, grabbed my goddamn horse. Pretty nice view in the background. There is some good views on this mission, I'll say that much. My back is still being an absolute beast. For some reason, just sitting at the way I could do with sitting to do these videos is... feels like someone's trying to pull a rib out. Yeah, I even edited like a bit out of that hill. I mean, not just messing around at the start, but I think even just climbing up it. You seen, it was just bloody slow. We made it up there. I ended up like, I just winched the loaf behind me because then at least it kind of has to follow me. And I think the loaf, it was helping a little bit because it was kind of driving up the arse end of the Kenworth and giving it like a little push here and there. So, I mean, yeah, get yourself a loaf. We've made it this far. I did actually attempt to mess around and put the loaf back on the truck, but then I pretty quickly was like, well, there's no point because I'm basically going to drive down here and then unpack the loaf for reasons they already knew were probably going to occur. So yeah, I just thought I'll winch him behind me. Although I wasn't quite prepared what I was about to see. And we're going alright through here, I mean, even in auto. Am I imagining it as well, or did this thing not have diffs always on? Either way, I could well be wrong, or just when I was looking then. Yeah. I was like, holy thumbnails, Batman. You know what that means. Loaf, you are getting on the truck after all. I mean, that's just quick left the last bit in. The crane, because it doesn't reach, like, it starts just dropping once you extend it too far. Yeah, you just seem kind of have to wiggle the loaf over the back of the cargo. But we got him on there, got him packed. Might have bagged a thumbnail, I'm not sure yet. After I've done the voice, I'll go through and I'll pick. Oh, it's looking good though. And I like this bridge as well. This whole section, to be honest, actually I like a lot. It's probably about as close as I can remember off the top of my head in the game of like a... We're talking about like world's most dangerous roads or whatever, you know. Not ice road truckers, but those sort of things. You see there as well, my rear left actually dropped off the inside of that bridge, but like a goddamn professional, I kept it pinned, and it sort of didn't have enough time to tip me. Yeah, that bridge as well, just the fact that it's kind of like on two angles is pretty nice, and then driving along here isn't, you know, not like 1 inch to the left and you're going to fall off the mountain or anything, but it's still, yeah, nice views, a nice drive. I also knew when I was looking, kind of planning this mission, I could see on the map that this last little bit was kind of like a little bit of a tight, windy section, and I figured, obviously I could bring something like the Taiga with much better steering and all the rest of it. I was kind of curious to bring a truck like this because I knew that there'd be a bit of potential 3-point turns and all the rest of it. And yeah, it ended up, I mean, it kicked me out of high there, but once I put it in auto, it did have enough oomph to kind of carry itself around, so... Yeah, it's funny, because I was thinking about it, sort of driving along here. I think I prefer this truck to, say, the Derry 15C, but I wouldn't make the argument that this is objectively better than the 15C. The 15C is bloody good in just about every way. It was just the lack of guts that kind of disappointed me a little bit compared to what I was hoping for. They do seem to do the Derrys pretty harsh in this game for whatever reason. But yeah, this, I suppose to begin with, I have like a lower expectation of this truck than the Derry, so this didn't really disappoint in that sense. Yeah, again, another potential thumbnail. Like I said, certainly bloody good views on this map. Not sure if I'd want to be hanging around sitting on that dodgy looking rock between the two cliff faces though. Finally, we made a corner that I turned in time. Looks like a little diving board on the end there. I didn't spot that last time. How the hell did I miss that one? Oh my god, it looks great at some point. Lo4f's definitely going to go flying off that. Probably another truck as well. I didn't even notice it the first time. Rock teasing me, started rolling down there already. And I mean, it's this sort of bit where I could probably put it in high now though, to be fair. But nonetheless, I was more concentrating on like trying to steer at the right time and all the rest of it. So far, it's going pretty well. And yeah, I can't remember if I've mentioned it, but this truck does. I know I've mentioned it before. I can't remember if I mentioned it in this video. The truck does sound nice, so even while you're ticking along, it's a pretty good noise to listen to. And yeah, like I say, with the views. One thing with this game, what's nice when you're just kind of zoning out and floating off in your own world. That's the nice thing, just playing the game half on autopilot. Well, I am anyway. And then yeah, thinking about all sorts. Who knows what? Can hedgehogs swim? Who tested it? Who gets to test if hedgehogs swim? I had to do a 3-pointer for that one. So even that little caravan there, if I could live there, I think it'd be a deal. Yeah, it's not the first square, it's this middle one. One cargo container, and done. Like I said, no, you know, not unlocked anything or whatever. Is it 6,800 maybe? Again, it shrinks the screen a little bit. Not terrible though, it was just a good mission. I actually like the route down here. Just sort of I went and checked that square quickly. I myself was like, oh, I wonder what's there. And then when I was editing the video, I thought, if someone just thinks, oh, what's there? You know, it's one of them, like, if I don't go on it now, you're either never going to know, or be like, god damn it, now I've got to go on some separate adventure to go and find what the hell that was. So yeah, see, no clickbait going on there. I waited for the saving cogs, and then I jumped off the cliff. I mean, look at the Lo4f, goddamn professional, straight into like classic Halo diving manoeuvres. Rotates, used his owl rotation knowledge, applied it to himself. He disappears in the trees for a second. You think, did he really land on his wheels? Yeah, he did. Leaning up against the tree. Kenworth, however, not gonna lie, it seems to be a recurring theme recently, but he got a tree pretty far up his arse. I mean, like, he's taking it down to the stump. Low sound there. He's good. I kind of knew he would. The reason I waited for the saving cogs is I wanted to jump the Kenworth off whilst Lo4f was packed on him, but then also quit and reload and go back to the top so I could jump them off separately. Yeah, so long story short, I'm now kind of like, I think given long enough I could get the Kenworth out of here, but I didn't want to mess around long enough that the saving cogs then come up and then that's it. It's just like, oh, I'm not driving all the way back around just to jump off, but if I can quit and reload, it'll load me back up to like the top of the cliff. But yeah, it was stuck in there pretty good though. Yeah, it's definitely what she said, but she wasn't lying this time. And then, yeah, jumped the Lo4f off. I mean, I've got to point out, pretty sure his massive cock and balls just dented the flatbed. Remember when he stuffed his cock on a dolphin? Like, you didn't get the name horse for no reason. Yeah, basically I've quit and reloaded, gone to the top of the hill, jumped the Lo4f off. And yeah, wanted to send them off the cliff separately. First up, the old Kenworth. It's looking good. Classic twin steer manoeuvres. And then it was looking like this tree might actually save the day a little bit, and then nope, didn't quite roll over. So I'm stuck on the side, which I remember flipping this thing in the gameplay and review video. Yeah, switch the Lo4f, send him in for science. You know already. He knows to rotate, flip, land on his wheels, slap a tree, take some soil samples, do one more roll, just because he can, and bam, nailed it. And then, you thought he was going to hit that rock, didn't you? But he didn't. He's got the tailing of a housefly. So he made it out of there. A little drink, he's earned it. Yeah, long story short, I already knew, I was hoping this wouldn't be the case. But it was. As you can see, it's moving, it just keeps dragging along on its side, so... Well, yeah, I wasn't going to give up. It's just, like, really game, now I'm going to drag it back and forth, round and round. Went over to the other side. See, he knows his loaf. He knows his winch distances. Wedge him behind that tree. I thought, you never know, I'll flip it over this way. Maybe it's a bit easier to drag from this side. I don't really know. I mean, this is kind of, as it's a fairly new truck, figuring it out myself really. So I suppose I ended up leaving some of the results in the video. You'll see now, this is why I left it, you'll see me keep blipping the winch. When I'm winching it, it keeps locking, the physics are just locking in place. And there's no more tension building on the winch. But then I just keep, you could hear there, tapping the winch button, and then I carry on winching, and it suddenly moves again. So I mentioned it before, the lock-in physics thing seems to be more of an issue since I've added this phase. It's not the end of the world, but it's definitely increased, because I do this stuff quite consistently. Yeah, but blipping the winch, just press the button like 5 or 6 times and then hold it again as normal, and it kind of reset the locking it in place. I mean, Lo4f, see, he's got the muscle. If he wants to, I could kind of push the truck around like that. I was actually heading to the bridge, but just on my way, I wanted to know for science, could I, as he judged it just right, get behind that post, can I still reach the Kenworth? And I could. But this is what I was eyeballing like a minute ago. Could I kind of wedge diagonally to the bridge? The good news is that you can reach the Kenworth. And at the minute, you're looking like physics is locked in place, but I started flooring the Lo4f, turning it in, and at the last second, the Kenworth started then moving, but just as I kind of slipped out from the bridge. So I thought, alright, we'll get him tucked in there nice and tight. That's definitely what she said. I think, did I winch? Oh, I did go from the back still. I thought I might have gone from the side. Yeah, stuck a winch, floor it, steer into like the edge of the bridge. And again, thinking, oh no, it's not looking good. But he drops the hammer. Goddamn professional. Get yourself a Lo4f. 100% rescue record maintained. Double swan dived off a cliff, survived both times. Kenworth, well, didn't really. One time it landed on its side, one time it got a tree pretty far up its ass. It was a Christmas tree as well, it was like balls deep. Yeah, reverse. It'll Kenworth out, drive him around. About now, noticed the tyre had blown on it. You see him moving the Lo4f. It's all good. He's got spare tyres. And then I thought, sod it, I'll fix the engine. Can he fix all of it? Of course he can. 21 on left or whatever. Yeah, beast, get yourself a Lo4f. Actually a pretty fun mission, to be honest. Yeah, that's about it for today. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that helps. Thanks for watching. Thanks to my Patreon members. Get yourself a Lo4f because he's a whopper. And I'll be back soon.